Hello, you're tuned into The Wire. In this episode of updates on the coronavirus pandemic, we shall discuss the recent Sero survey results of New Delhi and Mumbai, how to understand it, and what to keep in mind. In the last 2 weeks, officials of Delhi and Mumbai released the results of their respective seroprevalence surveys or Sero surveys. In this survey, researchers isolate serum from the blood of the survey participants and test for antibodies against a certain pathogen. In Delhi, officials said that 23.48% of those surveyed had antibodies to COVID 19 in their blood, meaning that they were already affected by COVID 19 in the past. Researchers had checked over 21,000 samples in Delhi, so 23.48% comes to around 4,930 people. According to the Health Ministry, a large number of those who were found with these antibodies were asymptomatic. In Mumbai, 57% of those living in slum areas and 16% of those living in non slum areas had been found to have antibodies against the virus. In Mumbai's case, researchers tested only 7,000 samples. These two results indicate how far and wide the novel coronavirus has spread through India's two biggest cities. But these surveys have some limitations that we need to keep in mind. Dr. Chandrakant Leheria, an epidemiologist and a public health specialist, noted in an article for the Wire Science that we need to step carefully with regard to these surveys. He explained that the number of people from different demographic and socio-economic groups in the survey should be the same as the number of people in these groups in the whole city.
I would be cautious about commenting on the findings of this zero survey unless I know the details of the methods adopted, which unfortunately are not presented with most of the zero surveys conducted till now. It is expected that in scientific research, study or surveys are designed in a way that participants who are included in these surveys are very much similar to the population which is being studied. And this is something called representativeness. And representativeness could be on multiple parameters, but there are two which are really important. One is the geographical representativeness, whether the people who are being studied are coming from all the geographical area for whom we want to generalize the finding. And second is a representativeness in terms of population characteristic. More the representative a sample would be, the findings would be more generalizable.
Dr. Leria also said that these surveys could have been more scientifically rigorous. For example, he explained that the people involved in the Mumbai survey reportedly planned to collect 10,000 samples but ended up collecting only 7,000 because of administrative challenges. According to him, this factor could have skewed the Mumbai survey results.
And since we really don't know, without in absence of methods for most of these survey, that what sampling approach was followed, what was the distribution of people or population who were included as part of this sample, and whether they were adults, children, female, or people with comorbidity were proportionate to the population which was studied. It is nearly impossible to comment about scientific rigor in these surveys, and that is what we expect in most of these surveys. Now let's be specific. Let's take example of Mumbai Zero survey. Now Mumbai Zero survey were done in a few selected slums and 3 residential area. Now for a city of 20 million plus population and many wards and large geographical area, this is really a small number of units which were studied, and by any standard this could not be representative for entire population. Therefore we cannot say what has been found in Mumbai Zero survey is a true picture of entire city of Mumbai. It is possible that even after doing a larger survey, the same type of findings may come, but then it will be scientifically reliable and valid.
But keeping in mind these limitations, what can these surveys tell us about COVID-19 situation in India? Murad Banerjee, a mathematician and a disease modeler in the United Kingdom, compared the survey results of New Delhi and Mumbai with those of New York and London. He found that according to the data alone, COVID 19 was less fatal in Delhi and Mumbai than it was in New York and London. But this would be silly since it's the same virus spreading through all these countries. Then what explains the difference in the data?
So, what we appear to be seeing is that COVID 19 is a lot less deadly in India than in other parts of the world. Of course, these are just a couple of examples, but that's what we seem to be finding. First of all, is this entirely unexpected? And the answer is no. We would expect that fewer infections in India result in death for the simple reason that India's population is younger than the populations of Western countries. And COVID 19 is a very age dependent disease. The severity of the disease seems to depend very strongly on age. So, a younger population is no less vulnerable to infection, but is less likely to have very serious outcomes, very severe infection, very severe consequences of infection, including death. So, in this sense, the results are not entirely unexpected.
India's population is younger on average, so COVID 19 could prove less fatal on average. But Banerjee said that according to his calculations, the two surveys reported an infection fatality rate even lower than expected because of the young population.
So, what else could be going on? Well, one thing that we know has been going on is that there has been some level of death underreporting, COVID 19 death underreporting. We've had reports from many different states now of COVID 19 deaths not making it into the official statistics for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes deaths are not being classified as COVID 19 deaths if a person with other underlying health conditions, comorbidities, has died from COVID 19. Sometimes deaths are not making it into official statistics for a variety of other reasons. There's miscommunication between different bodies involved in the process. But whatever the reasons, we've seen this happen. We've sometimes seen these discrepancies being reconciled, so deaths have been added late into the count as a consequence sometimes of pressure, as a consequence of media scrutiny. But one thing is that we definitely know this is happening, so deaths are being missed. So when it comes to undercounting of COVID 19 fatalities, this is something which should clearly be held in mind whenever we're talking about fatalities, fatality rates of COVID 19 in India. The possibility that undercounting is occurring should not be forgotten. It's also important to stress that it need not be occurring deliberately. We know that COVID 19 interacts with other comorbidities, with other pre-existing health conditions in complicated ways. We know that it may not be entirely easy to decide if a death has been caused primarily by COVID 19, if COVID 19 has been, if you like, the fundamental reason why somebody has died, or some other health condition has been the fundamental reason. We also know that families in some cases may not even be aware that COVID 19 has played a part in the death of, let's say, an elderly relative. There are several anecdotal accounts of this. We also know that families may choose not to have the body of a deceased member of the family tested for COVID 19 because of the resulting complications, because of the resulting stigma, and so forth. So undercounting can occur in a variety of ways. It doesn't have to be a conspiracy.
Well, as more and more such data comes in, we can get a clearer picture of the COVID 19 situation in India. Meanwhile, keep reading and watching The Wire and The Wire Science for more such updates. If you like what you watched, support independent journalism. Click on the link given in the description below and donate to The Wire. Also, don't forget to subscribe to The Wire and hit that notification bell button for more updates from us. Thank you for watching.